Is Natsumon good for learning Japanese with? That's exactly what we're going to be finding out today in this video. I'm going to go through the first couple of hours of gameplay and give my thoughts on whether this game is a good or bad game for learning Japanese with. If you're not aware, Natsumon is made from the same developers as Boku no Natsuyasumi, a very popular game for learning Japanese with, because the game is actually set in real life. The game has you go through the perspective of a young Japanese boy often visiting your family home in the countryside. This time it's a little bit different. You seem to be going with your family in a circus of sorts, but the key fundamental thing of this game is that you're experiencing life in Japan through the lens of a child, which is really good for a language learner because everything is kind of explained to you, you question everything, and the language is often very friendly and realistic. Close to 100% of the language you'll see in these Boku no Natsuyasumi games is actually very essential for just everyday life. So it makes it a really interesting game for learning Japanese with. So without further ado, let's find out if Natsumon is a good game for learning Japanese with.
そうよ。だからこの町にいる間、あなたはずっと夏休み。
Unfortunately, just then there were no subtitles and I couldn't pause, so that language isn't very useful for a language learner. It's got a kind of cute art style though. It does kind of remind me of like PS1 era gaming, I don't know why. I really like the Japanese aesthetic though, like, especially for someone who's not in Japan, but even for someone in Japan, it's way too hot. I don't want to go outside right now. It is so hot. I just want to stay indoors where there's air conditioning. So to kind of be able to experience summer in this way is really cool. And for a language learner, you also get to experience a bit of Japanese culture. And this game's going to be amazing for that because I've seen there's all kinds of things from locations as well as things like matsuri, like festivals and fireworks and all that kind of stuff. So you really get to get kind of a taste of Japanese summer here in this game. Okay, can we pause this dialogue? Let's have a look.
出迎えご苦労さん。
この人はトコトコくん。
お疲れ様でした。京子さん、うちのサーカスの団長さん。
No, I can skip it by accidentally pressing the circle button, but you can't take this at your own pace, and you can't pause. If you try and pause, it skips. I think that actually makes it more difficult than the original Boku no Natsuyasumi games, and definitely more difficult than Crayon Shinchan.
とてもいい性格。
But it seems to have a lot of voice acting, which is good. I guess one thing you could do is every time there's a line, just like take a screenshot. I guess that could help, but that's gonna be pretty tough for a Japanese language learner. That means if you're like a beginner, all of that is just gonna go way over your head. So unfortunately, that is a huge negative, especially for this genre of game. Like the other games, I believe you can. Crayon Shinchan does actually have push to continue, so Crayon Shinchan is pretty good. This one, it is nice though. We get kind of options of what we want to say. I'm gonna have to test in the menus. Maybe there's a way of actually turning it on for push to continue, hopefully. So this is cool. I can ask lots of things. So there is a little bit of learning, right? Let's say you're a complete beginner. All of that would just be way over your head, but at least this particular question, you can, Mada nani ka shitsumon aru? You can be like, oh, okay, well, do you have some sort of question still? And then you can read a little bit here, so you can make some choice and you can look these words up. So it's not completely overwhelming, but it's not ideal.
斬新な質問ね。どちらかというと今日よ。どこでもいいわよ。好きなところを使ってちょうだい。
But the language is definitely all essential. Like, this is all really useful grammar and vocabulary.
そうそう。危うく忘れるとこだった。
Everything.
あの机の上に夏休み勉強セットがあるよ。この町の小学校の先生が来て置いていったの。じゃあ晩ご飯まで時間があるから外で遊んでおいで。
So the actual language itself, though, is ideal for a language learner. It's not just video game language, and that's one of the really big benefits of the Boku no Natsuyasumi series. Okay, so now we're finally playing the game. So let's have a look. We can press L for our sketch pad. All right, we want to write our diary. This is a cool thing they normally have. You can kind of write your diary, but they normally do it at the end of the day. You get like a whole series. So this is nice. As the actual events happen, you write in your diary. And this is very, very cool. So this is really unique. This is something that I've never seen in any of the other games. You can actually choose the level of detail that you write in the diary. So let's say, for example, that you are a complete beginner. You can choose just kantan, which means basic or simple, and you can see the actual description of the events that just happened are very simple. 新しい町にやってきた. So I've come to a new town. But if you want, you could make it a little bit more detailed, normal. Now it says the same thing, but with 知らない町にやってきた. So I've come to an unknown town. Or we can do gurun gurun, and it's even more detail. So 知らない町さん、これから毎日よろしくね. So that's kind of cool, right? You get a lot of varied reading practice, and you get kind of the stages, right? You can kind of grade your own language that you're going to come across if you wanted. You could just keep it kantan, keep it simple. So that's kind of cool. So that's probably going to happen as you come across different events.
それはこの町の小学校の先生が僕のために持ってきてくれたのであろう夏休み勉強セットだった。昆虫採集セットと絵日記、ラジオ体操カード、そしてなぜか何も書き込まれていない通知表もあった。
Oh, I can write a new entry. Okay, I've discovered my table. Right, yes, 勉強セットを見つけた. So you found a study set. And again, varying levels of complex sentence if you would like. That's cool. That's very, very cool. One thing this is really good for is that, okay, all right, so the dialogue, unfortunately, so far seems to be unable to take at your own pace, but you could just use this as kind of like a Pokedex, right? You get the immersion listening to Japanese, and then as new events happen, you write your dictionary, and this now is your study, because it's pretty clear to you the events that are happening, even if you don't understand the language. So to then read the events here written in quite simple Japanese is really good reinforcement for complete beginners. So if you just accepted that you don't understand all of the Japanese that's being spoken and just use that as kind of a chance to immerse in Japanese and hear native speech, and then use this part as your study, that way you can focus more on the gameplay. And whenever you come across a new event, then you go back into study mode, and it's very, very simple. This is way simpler than like Pokedexes are. So this is actually quite accessible for a beginner. It's just all dependent on how you approach it mentally. If you accept that you're not going to break down everything, but you just break down this, it could actually be a really good beginner game. I wonder how often the events happen, right? Because normally you have like a day, and as you progress through your day, you actually choose what events happen as you discover certain areas, and the things that you do will actually decide exactly what kind of events happen. So, but this isn't voice acted. Oh, but you can take this at your own pace. Okay, so that's not bad. So there are parts that you can take at your own pace. That's nice, very important. So this part you could study with, right? It's visually connecting to what you're looking at. No voice acting, but unfortunately, but it's not too bad. Oh, and you can take all this. So it's cool. So there is parts that you can take at your own pace. So it's not all, unaccessible. What happens now when we actually approach someone?
わらべは見たりの中
Yeah, I can't seem to... Oh, that's unfortunate. So I just pressed circle and it skipped the voice line, went to the next voice line, and she didn't voice it. But now I can take it at my own pace. That sucks. That's really lame.
こんなにいい天気なのに。でも私雨が好きなんです。雨女なので。妖怪？それは雪女。
That's really lame. That's really lame. So if you want to take it at your own pace, you don't get voice acting. At least you get the choice, but it really sucks that you have to choose.
おかずのリクエストはできるかな？
できる時もある。できない時もある。
Right, so you could play like this if you want to and just take it at your own
責
pace.
任重大。頑張ってね。うん。
Okay, so there seems to be kind of quests that you can get.
晩ご
That's
飯
cool.
まで気をつけて遊んでおいで。
Now, can I re-talk
私
to
雨
her?
が好きなんです。雨女なので。
晩ご飯のおかずの魚なんだけど、
何ですか？
まだ釣れてないんだ。
なるほど。でもめげずに頑張って釣ってきてくださいね。私雨
晩ご飯
な
まだ
Oh, cool. Okay, so she does repeat the line. So it wasn't the original line, so you couldn't use that to study because the events have already happened. But then she is left in a state of kind of a repeating line. She says the same thing over and over again. So there is a little bit of dialogue here that you could use for study that you can take at your own pace. Maybe you go through the first time and you listen to them just talking, and then the second time you do it without the voice acting and you take it at your own pace. It's just going to be a little bit frustrating that not everything you can treat this way. Normally, that's what you'd be able to do if the whole game was pushed to continue. But at least there are little pockets that you could use for studying. So it's an interesting game, right? It may not be ideal, but it's definitely interesting. And I think the gameplay is going to be a real good one for language learners, because often the gameplay is too heavy when you play a game, and either the gameplay is too heavy or the language is too heavy, and the balance is really difficult. I think this game is going to be pretty ideal for both, because it's more about exploration, and then you can choose when you want to talk. In a way, it's kind of like Zelda, right? Where you got like exploration, catch some bugs. Yep. Okay. It's got a nice soundtrack. Okay, we caught some bugs. Do we get a Pokedex for bugs? Oh, wow. Every bug gets its own diary entry. That's crazy. Okay. So information about the bug, where you caught it, and then a little description written in purple. That's cool, that's cool. 1 of 200! Oh my god. Are there 200 different bugs to catch? That's a lot of reading to do. Well, that's nice. So, yeah, it has some really big strengths. This game would be like, actually, it's so close to being a perfect game for learning if only everything was pushed to continue rather than it happening automatically. I wonder if there's a way of changing the settings. Please, God, please let me change the settings. Oh, okay, that's cool. So you can actually change the progression of time in the day. That's really cool. So you can choose whether you want the day to progress quickly or not. I definitely want it to be slower. So non-biddy would be the one we want. Now, I would recommend for anyone playing any game, always make sure to turn down the music as low as it can go, because you can normally still hear it anyway, but you really want to be able to hear the voices clear, so make sure that's at max. So I often play my games in these kind of settings. Might even turn down the environmental sounds, keep them at like 2, and make BGM 1, voice at max. That's kind of something I really like for a bit more clearer voiced dialogue. Alright, so there doesn't seem to be a push to continue. That's really unfortunate. Wow, look at the world map though, that's really cool. Can we have a closer look? We can. Oh, that's adorable. Oh, the train moves around. Ah, that's cute. This would be a fun game to just explore, right? Oh, there's a castle! Just explore, get some reading practice here and there. I think if you just used it like that, you get listening practice. Don't worry that you don't know everything, that's fine. And then just use this game as an exploration, fun little chill thing to do, that you get some reading practice at really basic level. Not only that, but you can choose the level. Remember, you have 3 different levels of your diary entry, so you can choose the difficulty that you actually play the game in. That's kind of cool, right? So like, it really does have some benefits. Ah, okay. So it doesn't let you know when there's a new entry to do, but when you go to this menu, then you can see it. Alright, she was singing. Alright, so here's an entry about her singing. What else? Oh, my first bug! 最初の虫を捕まえた. That's really cool. I really like that, right? If you're a complete beginner, like you're N5, just do kantan. And this is going to be great reading practice for you without feeling overwhelming. How cool? How cool is that? What a unique experience. Like, I've never seen any other game like this. Like, you can... Oh, that's so cool. Like, this could actually be a highly recommended beginner game just for this fact, right? Hiroi jinja ni yatte kita. Like, that's so basic. Nothing there is going to be too overwhelming for any beginner learner. I don't know of any other game that has that level of kind of simple language. So, wow. I really got to approach this different in my head of whether this is like a great game or not a great game for learning Japanese with. It sucks that there's parts that are just going to be overwhelmingly going over your head when all the people talk because you can't take it at your own pace. But then there are sections that you can take at your own pace, and this reading material is really good. There are definitely some things that make this game kind of okay for learning, but there are some things that make it amazing for learning. So it really just depends on, I guess, your personal preference and what you're wanting out of the experience, right? But the way the game goes is it's very kind of, Boku no Natsuyasumi style. You walk around, you can do bug catching, you can catch fish, and you just kind of explore. And there'll be parts of the area that are kind of locked off to you for the time being, until you maybe progress further in the story or unlock, certain areas. You come across people every day. People are just doing their own little things. So really, depending on the day, things can change. You might find someone out here by the cars, maybe sometime, in the afternoon, maybe on like a Monday or something, but you won't maybe come across it all the time. So it really rewards just kind of exploring around the place, having a look, what's over here, what's back here, what's down here. I guess if you're short on time, it might not be the ideal game because of that aspect where you don't know if you're necessarily doing the right thing, right? Right now it's telling me I really need to find all of the people. So let's find... Oh, what's that? Where'd you go? There's someone back here. Ooh, we have a bit of mystery as well. Okay. This kid's playing hide and seek. So here's the other circus. I believe this is where we come from. Did these guys have voice acting?
さてと、
何やってるの?
やっといろいろ終わって安全祈願も済んだからさ。
今は荷物の片付け簿。
小屋ができてからそこの神社の神主さんに言われたんだ。
So there's a little bit of difficult language there, with talking about the circus and matsuri and things like that. Definitely would be a fun game to explore. It's not quite as beautiful as previous entries in the series, but it does have a distinct art style. And for being a fully explorable 3D game on the Switch, it's not bad. At least the art style does work.
ここは空気が美味しいな。
夏休みの宿題なんだけど、ここの小学校でどんな宿題が出てるのかわからないんだ。
なるほど。でもどうにかなる。
Okay. So very Zelda-like, when as you complete objectives and like kind of mini quests, you can then kind of increase your stamina so you can climb higher and do more things. You got a little bit of reading practice here about what you need to do. This is very cool. This is something you couldn't do in previous games. Oh, but the actual roof layout actually gets in the way. That's interesting. I wonder if I can jump up there and grab that. No. Oh no. Oh, but see, it's turning into a kind of evening now and getting closer to nighttime. You can start to hear the semi. This is very realistic sound right now. Actually, right now it's about 6 p.m. for me right now. Very similar to in-game. This is the kind of sound I would hear if I opened my door. Especially if you live in the countryside, you hear this kind of sound all the time. Oh man, the vibes are great. Very much Japanese town, inaka. You can hear the people chopping food. Oh man, this feels like Japan. Oh, the train going fast! That's so cool! Oh, I love that. I definitely recommend setting your game time to as slow as you can, because what happens is when it gets near nighttime, your parents come and find you and you have to go back home and the day ends. So it's much better to set it to slow time so you can have more time to explore and stuff. But if you wanted, you could just set it to quick time to quickly get the day over and done with. So it's nice that you can have that choice in this game. Oh wow, look at the Torii Gate. not very realistic, but still feels like you're in Japan. Oh, crab! I got a crab. I got a crab! What an adorable drawing. That's great. Ah, look at that. There seems to be different diary entries, and that was in the settings, whether you have one diary or, sorry, I keep saying dictionary, one diary or 4 diaries. So I believe, oh, there's the ghost. I think here, if we turn it on to 4, that may change the settings in this section. So now if we go, okay, and now I have individual diaries. So now I can go Mushi. Okay, so this is where you go for your Pokedex, not the actual Pokedex, not the actual Zukan, which is normally what the word would be, Pokemon Zukan. So here it's just you use your diary, and this is where you can now read about everything if you want. So these are the events that happen in the day. These are the bugs that you catch, the fish that you catch, and the items that you come across. That's cool. Okay, so there's 36 items that you can come across. How cool. Can I swim? Nice. Cool. How pretty. It's a shame this isn't voice acted. See, this is how I wish it was, right? Push to continue and voice acted, then it'd be perfect. Still a really good game though. For all the reasons we just saw, particularly the diary. The diary is the real winner for a language learner. If it wasn't for the diary, I would say this game is probably way too difficult. If this part wasn't in the game, not such a great language learning game. Just because everything goes way too fast. You can't take it at your own pace. You'd be better off playing Shinchan because Shinchan actually lets you take it all at your own pace. However, if the idea of just having fun, immersing in Japanese, exploring a little Japanese town, right, having a look at what's over there, and slowly getting a kind of storybook unfold that you can read as you play it, then I think that would be the best lens to look at this game for a language learner. It's a storybook that you can play. The diary is the real big seller for a language learner. If that kind of gameplay appeals to you, if that kind of sounds like a fun way of coming across Japanese, having a reason to read something, right? Because everything that we just read is actually connected to the events that happened. And that's a really unique experience. Like, we came across a strange man, and look, there it is. The exact language I just used is written right there. Nandaka ayashi oji-san da. So it's some kind of strange old man. Perfect. So this is really good for just the events that happen and then reviewing those events and having them as kind of a storybook. I would say that's absolutely the #1 best thing about this game. If that appeals to you, then it's probably an amazing game for you. And if it doesn't appeal for you, then it could still be a fun game to play. It's great for native sounding Japanese voice acting. That's one thing I must say. The voices aren't too anime. That was a problem that I had with the Crayon Shinchan Boku no Natsuyasumi game. Their voices were way too anime, way too crazy. No one talks like that. This game is a little bit closer to reality. I would say the original Boku no Natsuyasumi has the closest to reality. This is still a little bit anime, but it's not too bad.
やっと見つけたぜ。
Yeah, like, that voice doesn't sound too unrealistic.
気分はどんな感じ?
Oh, what a great final scene right here with the sunset. Perfect. How do I feel? I feel pretty good. I'm not going to say kannari, because it's not a perfect game, but I would say chottoi. I'd say it's a pretty good game for learning Japanese with. I personally would love voice acting that you can take at your own pace, and then ideally a chat log, but that's, you know, unrealistic expectation. But the fact that it has this storybook as you play, I will say once again, is a very unique thing about this game, and definitely worth something checking out. I believe this game does actually have a demo, so you can just download the demo. I've just used your Japanese account, I think. Download the demo and give it a shot yourself and see if you like it or if you don't like it.
面白そう？
やってきてすぐ聞かれてもわかんねえよな。
可愛い女の子はいた?
というわけで晩ご飯。今宵は京子さん特製のカレーライスとトマトサラダ。
では皆さん、
いただきます。
You could just make the habit of taking a screenshot every time someone says something. That way you can look it up later. Or record your gameplay and just review afterwards. That's kind of cool, right? So you have all the different locations with a nice name on there, so you can kind of get that kind of picture book-esque learning experience, right? Where you can see that that's very much a cafe down there, and here you have the circus tent. Here you have the shrine. And then you can find out the exact people. What's that boy doing? I kind of want to find out what he's doing by the station. Let's. I do like the art style. I'm definitely not against the art style. In the trailers, it looked a little bit too, Pokemon Scarlet Violet-ish to me. But this isn't too bad. I think the art style actually works because everything is of the same style. There's no point that kind of pops out and goes, ugh. Like, that was a problem with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The ground textures and the mountain textures and the trees look atrocious. And then the lighting on the Pokemon really don't look very good. Whereas this is really nice, right? If you just stopped for a moment, that's pretty pretty, right? It's not bad. It's quite nice. Oh, look, even the castle has lights. That's very nice. So this game is, it's prettier than, it's prettier than Pokemon, that's for sure. Oh, this is nice. I like this. I like this a lot. I like this kind of game a lot. Oh, this feels like you're in Japan. It really does. Like, this is nice. Oh, look, she's jogging around. Hello.
毎晩走って鍛えてるんだ。継続は力なり。
So if you want to feel like you're in Japan, get a bit of, oh, this is so nice, this little street. Oh, Ramune. It's a famous drink with the little ball inside. Oh, this is nice. Hello.
俺は新聞記者。
Ah, he's not completely voice acted. That's a shame. So you have a bit of voice acting in the beginning to establish his character, and then you go to this kind of non-voice acting. And that's probably something that's going to happen often, right? Oh, that's cool. Look at that. Bilingual signs. So station, Ekimae, right? Oh, this is nice. I like this kind of world environment. Very cool. Very, very cool. It's just nice to have more games like this, you know, like outside of Boku no Natsuyasumi, you have Persona. And that's mostly it, right? Where you get to kind of have real life Japan, you know, Persona's not really real life Japan, but, you know, real, set in real Japan kind of gaming. Really, the Boku no Natsuyasumi is king. And it's really great to see just more of that being released. I'm really glad this game exists. So it's not perfect, it's not ideal, but oh, look at that, this is cute. This is great. Oh, that's oh, the art style. I really like the art style, actually. It's quite nice. A bunch of drunk salarymen and stuff. That's great. Oh, I have to say this over and over again, but this is really the strength, right? Being able to tell the story that you play. You know, we went for a swim and here we go. Hajimete umi de oyoide mitayo. So I tried to swim in the ocean for the first time. Just perfect. And there's a little bit of humor as well. You know, you are going through the perspective of it as a young boy, so you have all kinds of silly things. So if you choose the last one, if you choose normal, it's fine. Puru to chigatte, it's different from the pool. Nami ga aru, there are waves. But if you do the gurun one, puru to chigatte, it's different from a pool. Oshikko shite mo barenai zo. So oshikko is to pee. Shitemo, even if barenai, you won't be bareta, exposed, found out. So so it's different from a pool. Even if you pee, no one will know. So a little bit of comedy here and there, right? That's pretty funny. So you can see it's a bit of a charming game, right? Charming characters, charming world. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. I'm very fond. It may not be ideal for language learners, but there's definitely this thing right here is going to be great for beginners. It's going to be great for everyone to get the Japanese listening practice. So for that reason, it's a big thumbs up. It's not perfect, but I think if you just approach it as well, I can't study all of the dialogue, that's fine. At least I'm getting some practice listening to Japanese. And then use this part as your study, then it's a pretty fun experience and a pretty good game for learning Japanese with. Okay, so now let's quickly have a look at an actual breakdown of the language that you come across. This game actually has ridiculously accessible level language. This game is probably going to be one of the very lowest level games that I've ever come across and probably ever will come across because of the nature of the fact that you can actually grade the language in those storybook sections in your diary. That is going to completely change the average level of the game. As well as the fact that the actual dialogue itself is all centered around real-world Japan and directed at a young age, being a young boy, this game is going to be incredibly accessible with the actual average level. And so what I've done is I've gone through every 10 minutes or so, kind of like a slice test throughout the game, and having a look at each sentence and seeing what the average level is. As we can see here, 44% of all of the language that I came across was at the N5 level. That's already incredibly accessible. Then for the N4, it's another 17%. That means if your level is like an N5, N4 language, that you're probably going to know around about 60% of all of the language that you come across when you play this game. That is ridiculous. And you can make that percent even higher if you choose to do easy diaries. So already the average level's looking pretty good. Now if we look at the usefulness of all of these pieces of language, so I'm using Lorenzi's Jisho and I'm giving a kind of average score for the usefulness level. So how common a piece of language is and how useful it is for you to study. And we can see here in this first sentence here at the kind of breakfast table, we have an average of 1,142. That is ridiculously low. As you can see, most of the language is in the top 500 words. That means if you know the top 1,000 words in Japanese, then you're likely to be able to read most of this sentence. As we can see, there are only 3 pieces of N3 and 2 pieces of N4. The most difficult piece of language here in this sentence is narubeku, which means as much as you can, but everything else is absolutely essential Japanese. This next sentence having an average of 1,900, again that's a very low score. Here we have an N1 piece of language, saku, for a fence, and that's bumping up the score a little bit with it being in the top 8,000 words. Oh my god, and in this interaction the average language level is 687. That is absurd. That is so low level. Almost every piece of language in this interaction, and there's a lot of pieces of language, are at the N5 level. Insanely accessible. Now again at the fence, we have a few more difficult pieces of language. Putting the average at 3,700, that's still a very good score, but you can see there's a few more pieces of rarer language, like we have kakera for a fragment. It's in the top 17,000, but you definitely do see this word used a lot. I see kakera for a fragment used in Dragon Quest and Pokemon. It's a very common word. So even here with a bit more of a difficult sentence, everything's really useful Japanese. Again at the breakfast table we have a sentence with mostly N5 language, an average score of 1,600. Now we're in town coming across this sentence at the bookstore. This sentence also has a very low level at 1,500. And the most rarest word in this sentence is honya, which you see all over the place for a bookstore, so this is definitely very, very common. So as we can see, if you ignore that 10,000, everything else is incredibly low. This is all essential language to know. Now looking at our diary language, this is very important language for you to be able to read, and the score does go up a little bit more. This is average of 6,000, and this is because there are a few rarer pieces of language. Now buying items at a store, and we can see there's a much more varied level of language here, both in usefulness and the actual JLPT level, but the average turns out to only be 3,100. That's still a very approachable average number. So even when it's really hard, it's still really useful and important language. Again, here looking at the diary, we can see a balance of different levels of language, but the average is still 1,450, so insanely important language. This sentence at the dinner table has an average of 666, that's very ominous, but incredibly low level language. This is so accessible, my god, there are so many words in this game that are in the average 500 most useful words. And there's so much N5 vocabulary. This is insanely good for a beginner. Again, a bit more of a difficult sentence here with some N2 and N3, but the overall level for usefulness is still really low, 1,100. So we're looking at an average being very close to 1,000. Now in this interaction here at nighttime where we come across a jogger running next to the ocean, and the average level here is 890. This is absurdly easy. Like, this is really low level language we're looking at here. And so now looking at the average score for this game gets a 1,700. I don't think I'm ever gonna see a game with a lower overall score than this. This is incredibly accessible. Yokai Watch had a score of 3,000. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom had a score of 6,000. The lower the number, the easier it is to play because it's all essential language that everyone needs to know. This game has 1,700. That is just absurdly low. And the fact that you can actually make this lower if you choose to only have the baseline Kantan diary entries makes this game uniquely accessible for beginners. And so this game is a really hard game to place on an actual tier list scale, how good this game is for learners of Japanese, because on one hand, the game is very challenging. You can't take the language at your own pace, you can't replay the language, so there's a lot of dialogue here that's just going to fly right by your head and really is nothing but just immersion, and you can't really use it to study whatsoever. You'd have to use external means like taking screenshots or recording gameplay in order to actually make it useful for a learner of Japanese. But on the other hand, this game has one of the lowest levels in order to actually get into the language. A very accessible game, very easy language. And you can even make it easier if you choose to make the diary entries simple. The game is set in kind of real-life Japan. The lens of the game is told through a young character, so everyone's going to be talking in a more simple way. That makes this game insanely good for beginners. And so I feel really torn on this. And so if I'm going to put this game on a ranking scale, you have to keep in mind it really depends on how you approach this game. I would say that this game cannot be an S tier, it's not highly recommended, and it doesn't have all the tools you need. It can't be A tier, recommended, and has most of the tools you need. As we saw, this game has hardly any useful tools to actually help you learn. You can't take it at your own pace, it just flies right by. You can't replay it or anything like that. But I do feel like it's a great game for playing in Japanese, just with those tools missing. It could also be a C for a decent experience. So it's somewhere between a B and a C in terms of the actual tier list placement. That doesn't mean it's a bad game for learning Japanese with at all. It just means it's not so accessible from the lens of a language learner. However, you have to keep in mind the big thing that's hidden here with the diaries. If you choose to play this game as just a gradually proceeding storybook, that as you come across the beach, you read the diary entry, as you come across something, you read your diary, and then you can choose the level, this is one of the most unique experiences for a language learner I've ever seen. I don't know of any other game that allows you to actually grade the language that you come across. That is crazy. So it's certainly not an S tier or an A tier game for language learning for everybody, but for the right person, this game could be an incredibly fun game to learn Japanese with and just immerse yourself in the Japanese environment. Set in a real setting, really accessible, low-level language, so it's very easy to get into, it's very easy to kind of feel like you're understanding everything. The average level is very low, the bar for entry is very, very low. It's a very fun game, it's just not as accessible as I wish it would be. You can't take the text at your own pace, the game isn't pushed to continue or anything like that, and there's a lot of lovely interactions with the dialogue that is really going to be completely unlearnable from the perspective of a student trying to learn Japanese. It's great for the immersion and the listening practice, but you can't actually really study any of it. You need to take screenshots and do things like that. So, what do you guys think? I think this is a really interesting game. On one hand, it's really, really, really good. On another hand, it's really, really, really challenging, but it really just depends on your perspective of how you actually look at playing this game and how you actually look at using this, because for some people, this could be the very best beginner experience. I've certainly never experienced a game that actually has this kind of written telling of all the events you do. So as you play the game, you actually get a written description of what you do. So it kind of connects visually and experience, everything just kind of connects together with the language. But then you can also grade the difficulty of the language that you actually connect those actions to. That's ridiculous. That is crazy. That is so interesting and so unique. this game could have been like an S tier or an A tier if it just had push to continue. So if you can get over that hurdle, this game could be an amazing experience for you. So what do you guys think? Do you think Natsumon looks like an interesting game? Do you want to try it out yourself? Or maybe simply just download the demo and give it a shot yourself? Let me know in the comments down below if you think this is an interesting game for learning Japanese with, and if there's any other games you think would be interesting to cover on the channel like this, then let me know in the comments down below and perhaps I might check it out in a future video. Thanks so much guys for watching. As always, a huge thank you to all of the supporters on the Game Gengo Discord community through either Patreon or directly through the Game Gengo website. Hope you guys have fun with your Japanese studies, and as always, I'll see you again in the next video. See ya.